Everybody, hello, and welcome back to another issue of the People's Briefing, where we talk about people, politics, and pop culture as it impacts Black, Brown, and queer communities. It's really great to be here to give you like an exclusive look into something that has recently transpired. We're going to really break down and talk about the importance of the Consumer Federal Protection Bureau and what this agency means. Their work is currently paused, and the implications, I think, for many of us are not known. Like we don't know what they've been doing to protect us since 2011, and we are going to talk about that. And so I'm really fortunate today to bring up and have with us the former director of this agency. And so I'm going to bring him up right now. This is our friend Rohit Chopra, former director. Thank you so much for making time to be with us and to talk about this.
Oh, so good to be here. And I think it's so good that we all know what are the implications of really defunding uh, law enforcement that goes after big banks, financial companies that cheat people and that often do things that make our financial lives worse.
We have seen in the media a number of major data leaks. We have seen situations where bank accounts have been frauded, and your agency played a large role in ensuring that consumers were protected. Can you give us like a brief understanding of what the CFPB does?
Well, just a few weeks ago, one of my last actions as director is we landed a roughly $150 million order against a company that many of us know, Cash App. Cash App is one of the most popular payment apps and platforms. And what we found
I use
was
it
that Cash App was stoking and allowing fraud to fester on its platform. All the meanwhile pointing the finger at others and throwing people's lives into a tailspin. And it's not just companies like Cash App. We also took action against a company that many of us know personally, Navient, the company that collects student loan payments, and entered an order that functionally bans them from entering federal student loan business again because of their widespread and repeat offenses. And really, the list goes on and on. And during my time as director, we collected about $9 billion in refunds and penalties against some of the biggest companies that have really picked people's pockets in ways that broke the law.
That number is astronomical. To think about that much fraud against the American person, um, it's really hard to kind of comprehend. One thing that we're hearing, because the counter narrative is out there from the bank CEOs and a number of billionaires who are approaching trillionaire status, who hated this agency. Why was there so much animosity, in your opinion, from these people, these corporate CEOs, against the CFPB and against you?
Well, you know what? I don't take it personally. Sometimes we have a situation where people build a business model that they can make huge amounts of money with sidestepping the law. I'll tell you an example. One of the things the CFPB led was a huge investigation over the entire industry of overdraft fees and overdraft lending. What we found was that these overdraft fees, people were being charged $35 even if they overdrew their account 35 cents. And we also found that banks were manipulating payments in order to maximize overdraft fees. Our work led to billions of dollars in reductions in overdraft fees, and banks across the country cut their fees. But let's look at who this is really affecting. This is affecting people who are largely just trying to get by. They're trying to make their rent. They're trying to meet their bills. And what they find sometimes is a financial industry that sets them up on a treadmill of debt that makes their life worse. And that's really what we were trying to challenge. We also reinvigorated enforcement against modern day redlining. We know that redlining played an extraordinary role in creating wealth gaps in our country. And we uncovered serious discriminatory practices in cities across the country, Philadelphia. So many, the Justice Department together, Los Angeles, Memphis, we found that people were being denied opportunities to get a mortgage loan. And that really is just fundamentally wrong. And I really worry that that enforcement is going to disappear. And what are the costs going to be to that? The costs are going to be felt by those who live paycheck to paycheck, or frankly, those who are just working hard and trying to get ahead in their financial life.
That is a profound statement of fact, and it was a major, it was a major asset to have the CFPB in existence. And this is something that I'm personally grappling with as a content creator and as an educator, is the realization that the majority, 90% of Americans had no idea that the Bureau was in existence and protecting and fighting for their well-being. So now that we're living in a different age, a different administration, again, I really think kind of a different era of American government and history, we see that these things are being taken away and people are not outraged about it because they didn't know what was being done on their behalf. What could we have done better in terms of messaging the value as creators, as people who do social media, of bureaus like the CFPB? And that's the first question. How could we have done a better job of getting the word out?
Well, I guess I'd say this. I don't want Americans to have to memorize all the different agencies.
But we have to know they are working for us, right? Because, when people are saying they're going to cut X, Y, and Z, reduce government waste and spending, drain a swamp, they are talking about bureaus and agencies that have been put in positions to protect certain Americans, Americans who are most vulnerable, Americans who are most marginalized, Americans who have the most to lose. And some of the majority of those people may not even understand what those agencies are for. And I think it's incumbent upon us to tell that story.
It's true. No, you're right. I think though, where I want to make sure that we are energizing people is the real world problems that they're facing. One of the things the CFPB did is ban medical bills from appearing on credit reports because it was so abusive and people were coerced into paying bills they didn't owe. Overdraft fees, other junk fees. The bottom line is that we need federal law enforcement going after the biggest and most powerful corporations and people that are breaking the law. We can't have a system where law enforcement only goes after those who are small businesses or individual families, while powerful people in our society get off scot-free. That is totally unjust, inappropriate, and un-American. We are supposed to enjoy equal justice under the law, and we have to fight for that every in our society. And that's especially true when it comes to our financial life, where there is a history of abuse and discrimination.
What can we do? As consumers, we're losing this protection. We're losing, currently it's paused. Like for right now, it's on hold. It's paused. We don't really know what will happen next, but we have some ideas. What can we do as consumers now moving forward to protect ourselves and to ensure that our needs are met and that that we're protected as consumers?
I don't have a good answer to that because it is true that for many people, they can file complaints with their state attorney general or their consumer protection office. But it was the CFPB that was the nerve center of making sure that the biggest banks and financial companies had somebody who was a watchdog. And I don't want a situation where the federal regulator is just a lapdog doing exactly what the regulated entities want. So I do think we have to use our voices and ask questions. Does this mean that overdraft and bank fees are going to surge? Does this mean that credit card interest rates and fees are going to go up? Does this mean that I'm going to be chased and hounded about bills that I don't owe or that I already paid? These are things that really make a difference in people's lives. And I saw this firsthand a decade ago. I started with others taking on the student loan industry for profiting off of people's pain. And we really made serious strides toward reversing some of those abuses. But we cannot give up and we cannot be silent.
Are there any organizations that we can share with the audience that they can go to for help in the event if as the agency is scaled back on pause? Are there other organizations outside of government they can go to for help?
Well, certainly, if you're looking to buy a home, a local housing counselor, if you're looking for ways to reduce debt, there may be organizations in your community. But I don't want people giving up and not filing cases with the CFPB. When I was director, every day, thousands of people would come to consumerfinance.gov and submit a case. And that case didn't just go into some hole or box that no one opened. It was immediately sent to the financial company to respond. And that means every day people were getting credit report errors fixed, refunds for unfair fees. And it really created a roadmap for me and my team. What are people complaining about? And sometimes 6 or 7 or 8 complaints we would investigate, and it was happening to 60,000 or 70,000 people. So we still need people filing those complaints at consumerfinance.gov and raising their hand and saying something went wrong rather than feeling a sense of shame about their financial life.
So, one thing for those of you who are watching, we have, I think we have 64 live viewers who are like watching right now through the live stream. Definitely want you to drop questions in the chat that we can also ask Director Chopra, if you have them. But one thing that has kind of been a question that's been continuously asked of me is, can, President Trump abolish something like the CFPB with an executive order? And I think, the answer would be that no, it has to come through Congress. Will the CFPB continue to exist?
Yes. I mean, federal law says there is a CFPB, and they might seek to stop law enforcement activity. But if we end and defund law enforcement that focuses on Wall Street and big tech companies, the people who will be most hurt are the ones who can least afford to be hurt. So, yes, this is still the law of the land, and we need to make sure that it's actually doing its job.
So I'm going to give some advice. I want you to tell me if this is good advice or correct me in the process. That number one, every American consumer, every watcher needs to be vigilant and checking their accounts, their account statements, checking their credit reports, checking their credit statements to ensure that there's no wrongdoing, off-putting information. Check your Cash App, check your Zelle, check all the things that you use that involve money and transactions. Be very careful with that. Also, any kind of second factor authentication needs to be in play for those accounts. Would you agree that's probably good advice right now? Or no?
Completely. That's completely good. We want to make sure that anytime you're able to transfer money or anytime you're able to borrow money, as soon as you see an error, you have rights under federal law. The CFPB it oversaw a law called the Electronic Fund Transfer Act. It gives consumers the power to dispute errors, to dispute fraud, so that they are not wiped out. And that law is still good law. It's on the books. And guess what? If the CFPB isn't enforcing it, it gives the right for individuals to also enforce it. So I want people to know that they have that power.
With this law ourselves. So what's the name of it again? The
Electronic Fund Transfer Act.
And so very important. Also, I want to emphasize that People right now, there's a lot of people talking about what Democrats aren't doing, and then there are those who talk about what Democrats cannot do. I want to encourage people who care about this, who care about agencies that protect the rights of the American people, to lobby your Congress people, period, your representatives, senators, and put more pressure. And this is for me, this is a complete independent statement of our guest. Put more pressure on Republican lawmakers from your state because they have the majority and they have a responsibility to serve the American people and to serve your best interest. Do you know people are sitting here calling the congressional switchboard to talk to Democratic lawmakers? Call the Republicans. They're the majority. They're the ones who can take action. They have a responsibility, just like everybody else, and to do what is legally and morally right for the American people. So that's my second piece of offhand advice as we look at what we can do in this moment to ensure that our individual rights are protected and that we are able to continue to thrive as Americans. Director, I want to thank you for coming on. And one thing I always like to do, I promised Allison it would be a short interview. We're at 15 minutes. So to me, 15 to 20 minutes is short. I want to ask, and I always like to share some like fun personal questions so that our guests and those who see this now or later will have a better chance like to know you. But before I ask those questions, I'm going to ask you, do you have any questions for me?
Well, I guess I want advice from you. What should all of us who led these agencies do to make sure that people really know what the stakes are? It can be so overwhelming in the news today. Every day feels like more and more information. And what should we be doing to make sure that you and your viewers feel like they know what's going on and how they can act?
You know, one thing, yeah, I'm gonna just put it out there, and I'm gonna put it out there, and I hope to. I have so many of my followers are like establishment Democrats and good friends who are watching, but it's gonna be a little bit hurtful here, but I have to say it. One thing that I've noticed that Democrats and Democratic administrations have done really bad with is putting people in the forefront who lead the work to talk about the work. Whereas what we have happening right now, as soon as the Trump administration took power, the regime immediately started to roll out people that are leading agencies who are leading things like Tom Hallman, making up titles like Bordazar, taking us back to, Russia. Lenin's Russia. These terms, these things, they're putting them out there, but they're also branding these people and they're branding the work and they're making the work very known. I'm a huge Biden fan. Everyone who knows me, who's watching this, knows that. Like, it's not. He's one of my, if not my favorite president of all time. I have no qualms saying it because of his life story, because of his heart, because of his growth, the good things that he's done, the bad things that he's done, the things that he's done to make up for those things. I love that whole entire story arc, the whole man's life arc. But one thing that is a point of like could have been better is letting people know directly from the people doing the work what that work is. Like, we should know how you and your agency have been protecting us and fighting for us since 2011. And I think you're the third person to sit in this role, like as director. We need to have known these people, heard from them, seen them, and understood that this is very valuable. People are
Yes,
about losing Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security, SNAP benefits, but they should also be up in arms about losing the protections of the consumer, the Financial Protection Bureau. They should be as angry about that, but they don't know. And that's the only thing that could have gone better. But now that people are no longer in leadership positions, I'm so appreciative that you are willing to come out and tell the story and just help educate the American people. And I think that our Democratic leaders have relied, and they're still relying on a media apparatus that's determined to fail them because they don't get the ratings and the views because they're not doing things that hurt people. It's the
yes,
hurt, the fear, it's the harm that's getting the ratings, that's causing the panic, that's keeping people glued to their television sets. So it's time for our Democratic leaders who are still in the opposition at the current moment to use non-traditional platforms and to get the message out because we can't count on mainstream media anymore to do that or to be ethical in this moment. The day will come when they'll go back to it.
I appreciate that so much.
So what we want to see. So this is what we want to know. This is what we want to know. So tell us now, what is your favorite dessert?
Oh, well, that's very easy for me. I like a blueberry pie. that has a really good soft crust with a lot of ice cream on top of it.
I've so okay. So the blueberries come from a can? Are they or fresh? Can you tell the difference?
No, no, can is better. Don't let people think that you need to use fresh blueberries. You actually need them nice and packed in together.
So what did you have? What have you eaten today?
Oh, today I'm right now in California, so I just had like a coffee and a pear, and the fruit tastes better here, I will tell you that.
For people who are out here watching, who are trying to decide what are they going, some people are like, I need a show to watch. I would need something that's binge worthy. What is one binge worthy recommendation that you have?
Is it okay if it's a sort of ridiculous show?
Absolutely.
Okay, there's many, many seasons of it. It is a totally ridiculous show called Below Deck. It is about people who are working on a yacht, and there's conflict between the yacht workers and the guests, and it is just purely ridiculous and purely fun.
People love the show. It's high. Below Deck is one of Bravo's highest rated
Is
shows.
that right?
Below Deck. So another question that we have that people that I like to ask as well is, what is a great book recommendation that you have for our audience?
Hmm. So sometimes it really depends on what kind of book you're looking for based on how you're feeling. Um, One of the things that I love Korean food. I actually lived there for a year. And some of you who are from certain metro areas have probably familiar with the supermarket H Mart. H Mart has
We
all
love H
sorts.
Mart in Atlanta. We love H Mart.
It's awesome. There's a great book called Crying in H Mart, and it is about an individual who is kind of wrestling with their identity, their heritage, and how they have experienced that through food. You know, every single culture has food as part of it, and I do think it's one of those books that it's not the most it's not necessarily funny or exciting, but it makes us remember how much we all have in common.
I love that. I've heard the book. I haven't read it, so I'm gonna add it to my list. I think that's a great text. The last thing I want to hear from you is a recommendation, a product, or a brand of food, or something out there that you are absolutely in love with. Like it could be a lotion, it could be anything out there. Like try this product. People don't know about it. Consider this.
Well, it's really funny. I've been a regulator for many years, and so we are always trying to never endorse anything.
Oh,
But
okay.
we all, behind closed doors, will say, what are the companies that we're a little bit captured by? And this is something that everybody knows, but no one seems to try some of their new products. No matter if I'm in a train station or in a mall, I absolutely have to have Auntie Anne's pretzel nuggets because they are just something that every time I'm traveling, that salty snack makes me feel a little bit better about a delay.
Right. I think that we're seeing more and more of those delays coming. I just heard about the shift from in DC between like they're changing out how you can fly, so you'll see way more delays at DCA. Thank you so much for your time. I
Well,
appreciate
thank you for having me, and keeps using your voice and having others learn about what is going on and acting rather than just watching.
absolutely, absolutely. And so, right, I just got to miss it. Are we wrapping soon? Yes, we're wrapping soon. We're wrapping right now, my friends. Director, thank you so much. I hope that you have a great day. And if you ever need me or the people, we are here for you, sir.
Thank you so much, my friend.
All right.